Welcome back to Turn Bark Time, Season 2, Episode 11. Oh, nice. Today we're going to talk about impeach. No, screw that. We're going to talk about state flags because I want to talk about state flags like we were supposed to last week. So we're going to talk some state flags and the history of state flags, and we're going to actually get a chance to rate some of our favorite state flags. We're also going to give you a chance at the end on our Instagram and our Facebook page to rate some state flags. And so this episode, by golly, is going to be about state flags because I just need an upbeat thing to talk about. So, Barker, why don't you start us off? What state flag are we going to talk about? Are we going to talk about the rankings first, or are we going to talk about the history first?
Well, this is a shout out to my baby brother, Gregory, G baby. He said we should do an episode about state flags, and I was like, well, what about state flags? And he's like, when did they come about? Why do we have them? And I'm like, I've scoured the internet, my friends, and the reason we have state flags is, I don't know.
Somebody wants
flags.
Start a trend.
People really didn't start putting like official state flags in until like states left the union and then had to be like, we're our own country now. So they made a flag. Yeah. But before that, nobody had like official flags. Yeah. And then it just kind of became like something that states do. And there's no legal precedent for like, you can't like, sorry, young man, unless your territory can't become a state until you have a flag. And the same's true for countries. Like every country has a flag, but I think it's just for like branding purposes. There's actually a pretty good TED Talk that I'll link in the description where it talks about like, because countries are ideas, right? And so it's a symbol of your idea, is like the American flag. Like nothing is more a symbol, right? That's probably the most recognizable flag in the world is America. But again, it gives people, it's supposed to be like a unifying thing, but I just don't think that many people care about their state flags. We're from Washington, so maybe, I'd say California and Colorado are doing a great job of marketing and having you see Colorado hats with like the Colorado state flag on it. And then you have the California Republic brand where they literally took the state flag and just were like, we're going to take the state flag and put it on shirts and hats and socks and coasters.
Don't live in California and we're going to make tons of money.
It is a family-owned business that started in 1981, by the way. Started selling at the state capitol, and then apparently California is so cool, other states wish they were California.
There's a lot of people out there disagreeing with you right now. They're like, no, we don't. Especially if we get traffic. By the way, if we get traffic in any other state, mazel tov to us. We're doing great. But so like Barker brought up, one of the precedents is everything that I read was basically, it was kind of like making your own brand, but it was the idea that the United States, it's like our federalism policy, right? The federal government has the say over everything, and then the next comes the states. Well, the states, this is their way of proving they're sovereign to an extent, right? So this is their Washington, state flag comes in, boom. When you see that, you know that you're in Washington, you're following what Washington is focused on and the ideas that are portrayed by Washingtonians, and you're under that government for the time being, even though the United States oversees it all. So the first state flag that we really have actually comes by happenstance. The first official one is January 25th, 1839, and that is the Texas state flag. They're the first official state flag. Now, the state that has retained their flag the longest, I believe, is Rhode Island, who they claim their flag was established in 1640, but was not adopted formally until 1897.
So does it count when you started dating, or like when you put a ring on it? Like, come on, Rhode Island.
When those congressional officials debate and decide that this is going to be the state flag, and they did it right after they decided that Washington state dance was going to be the square dance, and our state endemic mammal was going to be the Olympic marmot. So
everybody loves a good marmot.
A good Olympic marmot, because they're endemic to here.
So when you look at a flag, this is one of those kind of crazy things. Like I like flags. Turner and I like flags. If you've ever been in one of our classrooms, we use them as a bit of decor.
Yep.
One of the first things I did when I looked at my new classroom was like, how do I hang flags on the wall? And I was like, I used to use them as curtains, and like my windows are like too tall for one flag, but it looks really nice. And I went through and I put up my, and I was like, this is now Barker's room. It's got flags in it. But um, if you didn't know, the study of flags is called vexillology, and there's actually a lot of videos about it on YouTube. Apparently, we're not the only weird people in the world. And so, like, when you look at it, so there's the North American Vexillological Association, and they are, for lack of a better term, kind of like the experts in what makes a good flag. And so I'm going to share with you 5 simple tips if you want to make a good flag. And this is from the pamphlet called Good Flag, Bad Flag, written by Ted K., who actually lives in Portland.
Now, remember, anyone listening to this, when that history teacher assigns you that policy, that project on government, and you have the island, and you need to make a flag, remember these tips.
Yeah. Number 1, keep it simple, but not too simple, because they talked about how Libya was bad because if you're colorblind, the Libyan flag just looks like poo.
Like
Number 2, use meaningful symbolism.
Okay.
Right. So in America, we have the stars, right? If you think about like Pakistan has got the crescent moon for Islam. What was it? Mozambique has the AK-47. So
well, I mean, like in like the Union Jack for Great Britain, right? Is all the flags like put together, right? So,
minus Wales.
Well, no, the white in the back.
No. Wales get shafted.
They don't have a dragon. You're right, because they couldn't put a dragon on the flag.
There was actually a resolution to try and do that. How more awesome would that flag look with the Union Jack and then a dragon? Or you could just put what's that? Bale, the striker from the Welsh soccer team, on the front of that. I'm sure everybody in England would love that. But use 2 to 3 of the basic colors: red, blue, green, black, yellow, or white. Yeah. This is where America really sucks at flags. This is number 4 is like the rule that America was just like.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Don't put words on your flag.
Or seals, or state seals.
Yeah, that's literally all our flags.
And then number 5 is be distinctive or related. So like when you think about distinctive, like who has one that really stands out? Like the Bahamas.
Okay.
Right? The Bahamas has a very dramatic color scheme. It's blue, black, and yellow. Yeah. And it stands out like nobody else is like teal. Yeah.
No, but I mean like that's the difference, because like a blue is like considered one of their basic colors in there, where that's what makes the Bahamas stick out. Is it's a completely different like shade that draws you to it.
And you think about like related flags, you think about the Nordic countries. So you have like Denmark, who's the oldest of them, but then it's like they all have what's called the Nordic cross, not the Scandinavian cross. Yeah. But Scandinavian countries that have the Nordic cross. Anyway, but like Denmark, Norway, Finland, Sweden, and Iceland all have the same basic format. They just change the color scheme around a little bit. And so you're like, oh, they're probably related. In the same way that, flags that have, like, if you look at the American flag, you look at the Cuban flag, you look at the Liberian flag, you're like, there's probably some connection between these countries because they all have stars, stripes, and red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
So those are the 5. And one of the interesting things, what is the least used color, like main, or like it's not a primary color, but it's like the main in the list. In a box of Crayola 12 color crayons, which is the color gets left out?
The most?
Mm-hmm. Or like, what's the least used color? That would be pleasing. Don't be like brown, right? Nobody wants a brown, unless you're Cleveland. But
be the Steelers. I'm gonna say least used color. Man, this is tough. I'm gonna say yellow.
Purple.
Oh yeah. Purple.
Think about how many non-purple countries there. There are only 2 flags I think that use purple, and it's really sparingly, and those are national flags. But it's because for so long, up until like the mid 1800s, like It had to be artificially manufactured.
Yeah.
It was so rare, and it was reserved for the papacy, who doesn't even use it on their flag.
Yeah.
It's a very regal color, and it's so regal we can't even afford it.
Seriously.
So, but you can get blue. Like, it's so weird. Like, I don't know. We're spoiled in our day and age where you can go and buy
Any color.
seafoam and eggshell.
Yeah.
Salmon.
Jesus.
But anyway, on to the states. So yeah, Texas is the first, right? Texas is a very iconic flag, and for those of you who didn't know, it was actually independent for a little bit,
Yep.
right? It leaves Mexico, becomes independent, and obviously, again, the color scheme is related to that of the United States, red, white, and blue, right? This idea of, I think it's what, red and white, and then the blue is the feel, or the blue is like the
So it's
flag
white.
pants.
It's blue, and like a third of it is blue with a white star in the middle, and then it's white on top with red on the bottom.
Yeah, the hoist, where you would hoist it, is blue. Yep. Sorry, that's where I was looking for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so I guess you have that. According to the North American Vexillological Association, they surveyed people in 2001. So the study, apparently they don't do, annual flag surveys.
That's why we're going to do our own.
That's right. So they ranked the top 10 states for flags. First is New Mexico, because it's very distinctive, right? You have a yellow flag with kind of a Native American Pueblo-inspired.
I'd say almost like a pictograph kind of looking thing.
But it's inspired by the Native American cultures that existed in New Mexico, still exist in New Mexico. And as far as like standing out, number 2 is Texas. No surprise there, right? Don't mess with Texas. That's another one that's kind of a brand.
Yep.
And then you have number 3 is Maryland,
which is really unique. And like I would tell you that the first time like I really saw the Maryland flag would be like the Maryland Terps uniforms when they have their flag is like their uniform that they play in for football. So
yeah, and that one, that's another great example where they took a coat of arms and then like transitioned it onto a flag. Like other places, I'm trying to remember what state it is. I think is it Rhode Island or is it Delaware? I think no, it's not Rhode Island.
Rhode Island's just an anchor.
Yeah, and maybe it's Delaware. I think it's Delaware, New Jersey. It's got like 3 vines on a shield. They took a coat of arms, like they literally took the shield and just put it on the flag. And it's like, stupid. Don't put the shield on the flag. Like turn the shield into a flag.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. So the yellow and black checks represent the house of Calvert.
Yep.
George Calvert. Then the red and white is for House Crossland, which was the second Cecil, the second Earl of Baltimore. That was his mother's heraldic signs. And interestingly enough, like the black and yellow was used by the Union side during the Civil War, like the Union supporters, and then the red and white, the Crossland flag, was used by the Confederate supporters. And so after the war, in a way of kind of unifying those 2 groups, that's why they put them in opposite checks on their flag.
Gotcha. Number 5 is probably one of my favorites. And I don't know if we were sharing favorites this early into it, but number 5 is Alaska, which again is the all blue background, dark blue with the Big Dipper and then the North Star up on it. And that's easily one of my favorites. That's why I'm hijacking number 5 because
we're going to say it's number 4 because we didn't count Quebec because it's in Canada.
I apologize. That's number 4. Oh my gosh, way off.
Siri. And then number 5 is Arizona, which I thought might be higher. Arizona kind of has the star with the sun behind it. A little busy, but you can see it. It's always on the it's like on the shoulder of the Arizona Cardinals uniforms all the time, or on the back of their helmets, I think, too.
Yeah.
Neat little sticker. Number 6, I'm putting it in there because it's D.C., the District of Columbia. And so the District of Columbia, since it's Washington, D.C., they actually use the flag of General Washington. So maybe that's where our cool state flag idea went. There's some people say that we should modify that flag. One of the ideas that people have floated is like a green and white version of that flag. So to use for the state of Washington. Number 7 is South Carolina. It's got a palmetto tree and a crescent moon. which goes back to the crescent moon is tied to a unit in the Revolutionary War, is where that comes from. And they are like the third oldest flag that was officially adopted by a state, which they adopted, I believe, officially when they went to war with the U.S., but I'm not positive.
Correct.
And then after that is number 8 is Hawaii.
Yep. Hawaii's
which
flag.
Most people wouldn't recognize as a state flag, because the top corner looks like the Union Jack of the United Kingdom. So it looks like more like it should be like related to Australia, New Zealand, or Fiji, one of those protectorates. But it's because British explorers liked to go there when they weren't exploring the Pacific coast. The weather got too cold and it got stormy like it is right now. They would go hang out in Hawaii because it's the same reason we hang out in Hawaii.
Amen to that.
Number 9 is California, which you've already talked about a little bit. Everybody loves that bear.
Yep.
And then number 10 is Tennessee. So, which is a red flag. In the center is a circle with a blue circle with 3 white stars, and then it has a blue piece on the fly end of the flag, like just a little blue strip. That was a design choice so that it didn't look like it was too much red.
Oh, okay. There you go.
So those are the top 10.
Now
I'm not the bottom 10 because the bottom 10 all have the same problem.
Yeah, they're not good. But interestingly enough, like speaking of the bottom 10, one of the flags that actually was, I think it was originally on the bottom 10. I think. Let me look really quick to make sure I'm not wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, maybe they weren't. Okay. Well, one of the flags that was in serious question, or was questioned, especially with the world that we live in today and the movement that we've been having, the social justice movement, was the flag of Mississippi. And the flag of Mississippi was the last American state flag to have the Confederate battle flag on it. So that would be the Stars and Bars, as people know it. And it actually came into question. And lawmakers, I think without a vote of the people, if I remember correctly, just lawmakers voted in Mississippi to change the flag.
No, it was a resolution put to the people.
No, but I thought it was.
Oh, you mean in like the beginning to change it?
At the beginning, it was the lawmakers who changed it, and then it got put to the people to design. I think they got to vote on the design of a flag, if I remember correctly. But basically, they are the newest state flag, adopted actually this year, January 11th, 2021 was the first time it flew. And it has a magnolia flower in the middle of it, so it's red on each side with yellow bars that are skinny, and then a circle of stars with a magnolia flower in the middle that says "In God We Trust" and a yellow star at the top of that circle. So it's a really nice looking flag. Actually, I was really impressed that Mississippi, kind of came up with this, because again, think about trying to create a flag for your state, right? And try and think about what you're going to do, especially when you're looking at all these other flags of other states and you're like, crap, I don't want to copy you too much, So, but yeah, it's an interesting precedent that's been set. And speaking of precedents, we are the only flag that has a living dude or a guy who lived on our flag. And that is George Washington. And I was reading another article that ranked flags, and it ranked us like 23rd in Washington. It was like, well, if you're gonna name your flag after the damn guy, you might as well put his face on the state flag. So
yeah. And so once you get outside of one of the other ones that's kind of interesting, it's the only non-rectangular state flag in the Union. So you always think international flag, the one that always stands out is Nepal, because it's like the 2 triangles that are attached. And for state flags, it's the state flag of Ohio, which is technically, what do they call it? It is a swallow-tailed bird, I think, or a Gideon, which is almost like it looks like a cavalry flag. So if you think about like those almost like pennant-shaped flags that like cavalry units would carry in the Civil War, and it came about after the Civil War. So like you think about it, like I was kind of under the impression that maybe state flags all existed before the Civil War, and so like then you would know which units were which. But it's almost like the opposite.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the states that seceded made flags to show their new identity, right? And Virginia uses the one with six semper tyrannis, you know what I mean? And it's so, death to tyrants, which violates the rule of no words. But the biggest problem with state flags in the United States is they're just a bunch of SOBs. And that stands for seals on bed sheets.
Yep.
So we just took, a lot of states just took their seals, like I've got my Washington hat on, right? There's the state seal of Washington. We took that and we just slapped it on a bed sheet, right? On a solid colored flag. And one of the things I think that we're Washington, the reason that we're like 23rd or like 25th and we rank in the middle is because we're the only green flag in the country, right? We're the only state that has a predominantly green flag. Our color scheme is green and yellow with a little bit of sky blue, where most state flags that fall into the SOB, seal on a bed sheet category, are usually a dark blue with predominantly a yellow seal.
Yeah.
And they slapped it on there. It was like, you know what I mean? It's like, those were the states that it, was it like 5 minutes before the period, that you had to turn in your work, and you were just like, Nebraska, and it printed the state seal, and you're like, cut, glue on a piece of dark blue construction paper. I've done it, And I mean, Oregon, still in the bottom 10, but they were like, on the one side, they're like, Oregon. Yeah, that's us, Oregon. And then on the back, it's the only flag that's different on both sides. Yep. And you know this because you have one in your classroom.
I do.
What's on the back side, Mr. Turner?
Beaver.
Yep. There's just this little beaver just sitting there hanging out on the back. There was a petition apparently earlier in the 2000s to change it to what kind of looks more like the Cascadia flag, if you're familiar with like the Portland Timbers and the MLS. But it was more of it was like green, white, and black, I think was the color scheme, and then with like a beaver, like a black beaver superimposed in the middle. But apparently the state legislature of Oregon had other things to do than to change the state flag.
That's funny. There are some that are really funny though to me. Like Nevada is like, if you look at the Nevada state flag, which I also have one in my classroom, they are a predominantly blue flag with a white star in the upper left-hand corner that says Nevada, and then it says Battle Born on a ribbon on top of it. And I want to know how Nevada's Battle Born. It's always one of my biggest questions.
I think I think I know the answer to this. I want to say it's because they entered the Union during the Civil War.
Okay.
It wasn't because there was actually a battle that made them.
Yeah.
It wasn't like somebody like, this is the Battle of Nevada, and all the dwarves lined up and said, charge, and they beat the orcs. No, didn't happen. It was like there was a war going on in the East back in like the Americas. And then they're like, hey, Nevada, do you want to be a state right now? And they're like, yeah, why not? And then they're like, okay, you're a state, like in the middle of all this unpleasantness.
Yeah. There's some, like, take a look at them sometime. Like, just go on a Wikipedia page and look up flags of U.S. states and territories. It's pretty interesting. And like I said, we're going to post this on our Instagram page and let you guys vote. They also have flags that have been retired. And so you can kind of see some different ones. Like Louisiana starts off with like this, like basically a star that looks like the Chinese flag today, with some red, white, and blue stripes. And then from then on, they just wanted a big pelican on their thing because they sold out for the pelican. So, which they still have to this day. But then you can look at Mississippi with their 3 Confederate battle flags. Rhode Island took a break from their flag for a little while, but they still had an anchor on it. The flag of Vermont, which was basically the American flag with just Vermont written on the top stripe. Our Washington flag is on there. We had a flag from 23 to 67 that was a darker green, more like a forest green, with white writing, and then Washington had like a different green behind him. So yeah, there's a bunch of different flags, but this was like a super fun one to look up, and it was super fun to talk about. It's just something different, it's something we don't think about. But when you ever road trip, like I've I've been to all 50 states, and I've driven a car in all 50 states. And when you do, like, you drive through, you see, like, driving down the road, like at a truck stop, there'll be like the American flag, and then there will be like the state flag, and you're like, oh, that's cool. I wonder why that's like that. So, interesting topic, fun to talk about.
Well, and if you go to certain big cities, like, well, technically Washington D.C. or like Chicago, a lot of cities in Washington and counties in Washington have city and county flags that they're bad.
Yeah, we don't have
Like they're worse than the seal on a bed sheet people, like the worst being Pocatello, Idaho. So Pocatello, there's some love for you, but not for your flag, but for you. It's just it's a really interesting thing that we kind of take for granted. Like we have kind of this love affair in America with flags. Like we pledge allegiance to it every day, and then like we have a state flag, so it's like we really love the Stars Spangled Banner, and then it's like, yeah, we have a state flag, but like, it's there. Like, what do we do with it? And it's like we carry it in parades, we put it on the flagpole next to the American flag, but like, you know what I mean? Like it really doesn't. No. Other than a state identity, it really doesn't serve like any legal purpose. No. I don't think that we've ever gone to war after everybody adopted their flags and then like use them as like ways of like telling different people apart. I could be wrong. One of the interesting things about the flags, the state flags that chose to use the Confederate battle flag, is that many of those flags that use the Confederate battle flag were adopted in the late 1800s.
Yep.
They were not adopted when they broke from the Union, because the Confederate battle flag wasn't known then.
No.
It was then adopted later as kind of a way of resisting kind of like the movement in history forward. And so I think it's kind of important that we look at that. Like Georgia, the current Georgia flag actually is pretty much the original flag of the Confederate States of America. And they just put like the Georgia state seal in the middle of the stars.
Yep.
So like people were like, you can't use the battle flag because that's racist. But they're like, we're still going to go back and have a throwback back to our Confederate heritage. Yeah. And I think any time that a state, so I think of like Arkansas and Tennessee are the two that come to my mind most readily. Anytime you have a flag that's predominantly red with a blue field and white stars on it, it feels like that Confederate battle flag.
Yep.
And it doesn't mean they have to change it, but I'm just, when you think about like related flags.
Right. And
that's what kind of triggers in your mind. And if you think about, I wonder now, like I'm having this epiphany right as we speak, are so many of our states like blue and yellow because that was the predominant color of the Union in the Civil War, right? It was a navy blue uniform with yellow trim.
Yeah.
Is that the reason that so many of them are that color scheme?
Yeah.
It's fair to wonder.
It is. Tis fair to wonder. So if you like this, right, and you enjoy us talking, subscribe to us. We love to hear feedback, though. Like, give us topics, please, please, please. We'll throw that on our page as well, and I think I'll throw that on my personal page. We always love more topics and more things to talk about. We have an inauguration next week. Maybe we'll talk about that. Who knows? But that's what the people want us to talk about, so maybe we'll talk about something different. Who knows? So, anything else, Bart?
Did you know that initially when the United States is a country that changes its flag, has changed it. It's one of the youngest national flags, but we've changed it the most because every time we admit a state, we add a star.
Yeah.
So it leads to us issuing different versions of the flag. And then originally when they added a state, they actually added a stripe as well.
That's a trivia question I was just about to ask you. But how many stripes did they stop at before they changed their mind?
Did they get up to, I want to say 16 or 18?
15.
15. Okay, I was close.
So the flag that was carried in the War of 1812 had 15 stars and 15 stripes. And I love hanging that one in my classroom. And I'm like, anybody know what's wrong with that flag? And they're like, nothing. And I'm like, count again. And they're like, who's 15? You're like, yup. And you're like, because they thought. But I was like, then they realized that 50 stripes were going to be really small. And so they changed their mind. Obviously, we didn't know there were going to be 50 states. But yeah, no, that was the flag of the War of 1812. And then after that, they had stars. But what's cool is the fact that, like, if you ever go look up American flags, is all the different star arrangements that they do. And there are multiple flags with multiple star arrangements. And so, yeah, I would believe it's the most changed. So the question is, when was the last time we changed our flag?
After we admitted Hawaii.
Was I know? Come on, buddy. Little A push.
I looked it up, but it's when did we accept the flag? So it's not necessarily when did we bring in Hawaii, because like it not necessarily an instantaneous thing. I want to say it's like 1950.
That's when we brought in Hawaii. So it would be interesting to see if we got that. No, actually, most recent version, the one that we have now, was July 4th, 1960.
Okay.
You're in the ballpark.
I should have trusted. I thought it was 60. I'm like, no, that's too far.
No, that's in the span of history, Barker. That's within the margin of error.
The other thing to think about too is like when you design a flag, they often say, like as teachers, we give you like a full piece of like white, printer paper and say, make it work. But in reality, people who actually like vexillologists, flag experts would say, take a 1 inch by 1.5 inch piece of paper, like a note card essentially, and like hold it like at arm's length. And if you can see the detail on that note card, like that's the amount of detail that should be on a flag, because flags are normally 3 feet by 5.
Yeah.
3 by 5 is kind of a normal size for a flag. But when you put it up a 50-foot flagpole, all that little detail that's in your state seal
doesn't get seen.
You can't tell Nebraska from New York.
So funny.
So
that's awesome. All right. Well, hey, folks, thanks for watching this. We really appreciate it. I hope you're doing well. Until next time, I'm the Turn.
I'm the Bark.
We're going to be here a long time. Have a good night, everybody.
Be safe.
And be well.